0 to 60 can define a performance car, but it's the fastest 60 to 0 that's the aim of Tarok's brakes. From road cars to race cars, circuits, special stages, or the autostrada, nothing reduces speed like Tarok's brakes. Italy gave the world the art of Da Vinci and Michelangelo. Tarok's has given drivers the art of stopping. For more information and to acquire your own masterpiece, visit tarox.co.uk. Yes, it's me, Mark Stone, and this is the Backseat Driver podcast. It's the fastest, it's the friendliest, and it's for all the family. The Gas Shocks 116 Trophy and 120 Coupe Cup are the fastest growing race series in the UK, taking in 6 one-hour races and 8 sprints at all the top circuits. Visit 116trophy.com to find out more and get yourself behind the wheel. From a pot of tea to TT motorbikes. From a classic English breakfast to a full serving of classic cars. Bridge House Tea Rooms is the Northwest premier classic car meeting location for cars, bikes, tractors and owners clubs. So no matter what your automotive appetite might be, visit Bridge House Farm Tea Rooms on their Facebook page or call John and Alicia on 07980 444 221 for show details and to reserve your own table and parking space.
Car auctions. To some, they are a mystery. To others, they watch television and they think know all about it. But is it as simple as we all think? I'm delighted to welcome to the Backseat Driver Damian Jones, Senior Motorcar Specialist for the famous H&H Auctions. Damian, welcome to the Backseat Driver.
Thank you very much.
It's like I said, people watch TV, they see a car, go on the block, the hammer comes down and off it goes. And that's, from most people's point of view, is an auction. But there's a lot more to it than that. And H&H of 30-odd years' experience know a lot about this. How exactly does an auction work? And how do you put a car into auction? And what happens after that?
Really, it depends on the client and what they want. Yeah. So the consignment process can be as hands-on or hands-off as they like.
Yeah.
So, sadly, sometimes we're dealing with cars from a deceased estate. And you may well have a partner still living, so the widow or widower, and it's emotionally sensitive as you'd expect.
Yeah.
So in those circumstances, we try and be as discreet as possible, and take as much of the heavy lifting away. So we would organise collection, transport. We would go through all the history files, write the catalogue descriptions, but try and do everything in such a way that it wouldn't cause any stress to the bereaved seller. And then you can get other sellers, other clients who this is their pride and joy.
Yeah.
And the reason they want to go to auction with it is to showcase it in front of as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So on an auction day, depending on the sale, we have anywhere normally between 600 and 2,000 people in the room.
Right.
So
it's actually your auctions are held in various places. I mean, we're here in your head offices in Warrington, in Warrington, but you don't auction from here; they're done elsewhere, right?
Oh yeah. No, we're the motor car auctions are at the Imperial War Museum, Duxford in Cambridge, which is Europe's biggest aviation centre for historic aircraft. It is an amazing venue, and also, frankly, we all have different pictures of what a car's like in our heads. If we read an advert and things like that, and when you go there, sometimes it doesn't gel, doesn't match what you were expecting, and we've had client feedback in the past where they've just said, I'm annoyed with myself because the car's not quite what I thought, but I'm also at this amazing museum, so I don't feel like I've had a wasted day.
We've had a nice day out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we also go to the Pavilion Gardens in Buxton in Derbyshire. That's our longest established venue, so you've been going there 30-odd years. And that is surrounded by some of the best driving roads in the country, in my opinion. I mean, there's some cracking roads around there. Sadly, a few speed cameras now. And then for the motorcycles, we go to the National Motorcycle Museum at Solihull, and we have a close partnership with them where we co-promote each other at different events around the country. So, we very much, we do have online sales, we do have time sales, but we're very much believers in the physical auctions.
No, it's one of those strange things, and the Motoring Ombudsman has said this. There's all this online stuff. Please go and see it. Physically go and look at it. If you can see, you might not be able to drive it, especially an auction car, but go and see it and look round and poke it and sit in it.
Very, 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 very much so. Especially, in the last however many years when MOTs have become optional, for vehicles that are over 40 years old. There's some sense in a pre-war car with a massive chassis that looks like it's been nicked from a railway carriage. They're not worried about that corroding. But a monocoque, like as you find in a Ford Escort Mark 1 or Mark 2, you're just the potential.
Well, they were only ever designed to last 10 years, weren't they?
Yeah. So, and also you can, what I would say, anybody who's ever interested in an auction car at anybody's sale, contact the auction house as soon as you can. Because, the auction house wants you to buy with eyes wide open. So if you've got questions, ask the questions. Depending on the seller, we've got a couple of cars coming up on September the 20th. People are away at that time, so they said, can I go and see the car in advance? So, we've got the car to neutral territory, if you like, and they're having a look at it that way. And also, if we know in advance, we can arrange for engineers to pop down on setup day and have a proper...
Well, so you can have yours, you can have a potential purchase inspected.
You can have a potential purchase inspected. Now, obviously, that's got to be with the seller's permission. You don't want them sort of saying, why is my car up on jacks and this and the other? And often, they want to be satisfied as to the credentials of the person who's doing the inspection. But again, if you're giving the auction house notice and you make the request, the seller can only say no, and you can draw your own conclusions. But it really is, from our perspective, one man's meat is another man's poison. We do get cars coming through and we try and see everything we can in advance, but it's not always possible. But sometimes you get a car and it's described as average in every regard, and it turns up and you think, that is so much smarter than my 2-year-old company car. I don't think what the idea of excellence is. And then other times, unfortunately, it's the opposite way, and you get a car that's described as excellent all the way through, and it looks perfectly nice in the photos, and when it turns up, it's just not. And it happens to be one of those circumstances where sometimes, an owner's passed away, a relative's selling it, the late owner told everybody down the pub that was the best thing since sliced bread. That's what's been passed on innocently, and the car's not. So it's always make your mind up. I mean, we do, if people ask us, we take further photos where we're specifically looking for faults. So if we see bubbles, cracks, splits, whatever in the paintwork or the bodywork, we don't have access to ramps at the venues, but we're quite happy to stick a camera underneath and that sort of thing. And again, really in auction terms, we'll normally be able to tell you whether the engine starts or not and whether it goes into first and reverse. Well, that's it. We're not, able to, for time and all sort of other pragmatic reasons, run an engine up to temperature, you test drive everything. But there are ways that you can go about asking the auction house in advance to reduce the potential risk. And some of it's common sense. So, if you should be able to see the paperwork for any vehicle if you go to auction. If you look through the paperwork and something is being meticulously MOT'd every year, but it's literally only gone to the MOT station every year, there's a fair chance that on its first long journey, when it's up to temperature,
it doesn't go.
It'll conk out, seals will perish, the brakes, which were working fine because they were doing 3 miles a year, the seals will go and you're in a world of trouble. So you can have a look. If you see something that's done a decent mileage every year and been serviced every year, obviously that instills confidence. And also, certainly with classic car auctions, you need to understand that they are, for most people, a high days and holidays thing. That's what they're using their classic for. And they've got used to driving around all sorts of problems that they've been driving around for years and have frankly forgotten about, which are then a bit of a shock to a new owner. So somebody might jump on
A bit like don't be alarmed, the passenger door flies open on right-hand bends, which back then they'll just keep hold of it every right-hand bend.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I have a number of cars that come through where the fuel gauge packed up however many years ago, but somebody just drives around it, and all that sort of thing. But
because we know once it's done 250 miles, it needs a bit more putting in it.
Absolutely.
Hidden away in the heart of the Ribble Valley, Specialised Automotive Services offer unrivalled levels of talent for all types of vehicles. All makes and models, old and new, are cared for with the exact same levels of detail. From accident repairs, paintwork, or even full bespoke bare metal resprays. Mechanical rebuilds to full replacement or modifications of defunct electrical systems. Specialised Automotive Services offer traditional engineering and mechanical skills along with the company's constantly updated digital systems and diagnostics. Each SAS technician embodies the SAS ethos of ensuring everything is in order and exactly as it should be. To arrange a guided tour of the workshops and the new vehicle finishing and detailing bay, call Dean on 01282 776 081 or visit sas-autos.co.uk.
How do you arrive at a value of a car? And does your valuation ever conflict with the owner's idea of the value of the car?
Yes. That's the short answer.
Because I conclude a lot of people will think the car's worth a fortune, and the cold light of day, it ain't.
Well, it's a mixture, to be frank.
Yeah.
We try and arrive at a reserve price in consultation with the seller.
Yeah.
Now, what we charge in entry fees, a basic entry fee for putting a car through one of our classic car auctions is £120, £100 plus VAT. That goes nowhere near covering our internal costs of running a car through a sale. So just trying to rely on entry fee income, we'd have been out of business 29 and a bit years ago. So you have to feel you've got a realistic chance. Above and beyond that, often the single biggest expense for people when consigning to a classic car auction isn't our charges, it's transport.
Yeah.
So, if you've got somebody and because of where they're situated and the current cost of transport, it's going to cost £500 to get the car to the auction.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't sell, another £500 back, we're not in the business.
Do you stand that, or does the owner stand?
But the owner stands that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're not in the business of wasting our own time or other people's time or other people's money. So if... what we'll do often is either people will contact us looking to potentially sell, or we'll perhaps contact them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our business is word of mouth recommendation. So somebody might say, "Oh, I've got a friend who's thinking about selling. I'll give you his number." So you try and come up with a rough ballpark.
Yeah.
Before you jump in the car.
Because just what you said, one of the problems is a lot of the classic car magazines bring out an annual What Your Car's Worth publication. And it's a bit like the good old Parker's Guide from years ago. You used to look at that and work your values out. And I conclude a lot of the time the published values don't coincide with the actual values.
The classic car magazine in price guides to have a huge sweeping generalization, which, our stress doesn't apply to all of them, but... Again, for purely pragmatic reasons, a lot of their revenue is derived from advertising.
Yeah.
A lot of that is from classic car dealers and auction houses. And a classic car dealer won't necessarily want to use auction values because that allows nothing for an uplift, and they've got to make a living.
Yeah.
So that is something where you'll get, and that's a growth of the internet actually, is we've seen a transition over the last 30 years from a buying audience that was more trade dominated to a buying audience now that's more private dominated.
Right.
Because a lot of traders will say, if I buy a car from your auction and I put 20% on it, all I'm going to do is get people ringing me up saying, well, I know what you paid for it, I'll give you a bit less.
I was going to say that's one of the problems, the well-known television auction house. There's one guy buys nearly every MGB that appears. And the problem is, there's a delay between the filming and it going out, etc., etc. But if they go to his showrooms, they'll see the car and they'll know exactly what he paid for it. And they'll also be able to work out how much he's stuck on top. Now, it's like the old saying, profit is not a dirty word. We all need to make it. But if you're not careful, you'll do yourself out of selling a car because you'll think, he's after too much for that now.
Yeah, there are good and bad auction houses, and there are good and bad classic car dealers.
Yeah.
There are some dealers who buy at auction and really go through a car stem to stern.
Yeah.
Because they want to offer a warranty on it, and they earn every penny of the uplift.
Yeah.
And there are others who might pretend that they're selling on behalf of a client or this, that, and there's no investment in there.
Bought from the bit of a wax and polishing, and that's it.
But no, I mean, it's one of those things that, yes, we discuss the reserve. If we don't think it's achievable, we won't take a car on because it's a waste of people's time.
Yeah.
You're quite right. It's very rare to come across a seller who doesn't have an idea, even if that's how they start the conversation. I've got no idea what it's worth. Well, you think it's worth X? Oh, I'd never sell it for that. But more than likely it's a discussion. And it's also trying to get people to understand that it's a different mentality behind an auction sale.
Yeah.
So with a private sale or a retail sale through a dealer, you see an asking price advertised. And the expectation is that you can probably make an offer below that level.
Yeah.
5-10%, something like that. There'll be a bit of haggle room, but that is a maximum ceiling.
Yeah.
Now, for auction to work at its best, it's the reverse psychology. So what we always say to sellers is if you want to maximize the bidding on a vehicle, you've got to make it look as attractive as possible. So we ask people to put things to market at their worst case scenario price.
Yeah.
Not the price they want to achieve, but a price that push came to shove, if they had to,
They'd accept.
Yeah. And the idea is then that you get people bidding against each other and building the price up.
Yeah.
So you are, if you pardon the expression, putting blood in the water.
Yeah.
So you have two real hooks with auction. One's your picture, the other one's your price. We tend to find if people like the look of the picture or the price, they'll read the description. If they like the look of both, then you're onto a winner.
Yeah.
But it is that sort of thing. But, we also, different houses do things differently. Our guide prices, reflect what the car can be bought for.
Yeah.
There's never a case of guiding something at 10 to 12,000, for example, and somebody bidding 15 and being told that the seller wants 20, because it doesn't sit right with us. It's not correct as far as we're concerned. And also, a lot of people, this is their passion, this is their hobby. If they've taken a day off work and taken the time, trouble and effort to put the money in a current account where they can pay for it quickly and all that sort of thing, you're just not messing them around. And also, you haven't done the seller any favours either.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, as I say, it is a consultative approach. And you also, as a seller, either need to be attracted to the convenience of an auction sale, or accept that the auction house has a decent chance of out-marketing you.
Right.
Because if you don't, sell it yourself. It's one of those things. We charge, as the majority of competitors do, a seller's commission and a buyer's premium.
How does that work? Say, just take a round figure. Say a car shifts for £100,000. How does all that work?
Well, a hammer price for £100,000. Our standard seller's commission is 5%, sadly, plus VAT.
Yeah.
So at £100,000, somebody has paid, the seller has received, sold for £100,000, £94,000.
Right.
Now we charge a buyer's premium at 12.5%. So if the hammer drops at 100, somebody's paid 112.5.
Right.
So, that is a decent chunk of change.
Yeah.
Now, typically for a 6-figure car, we will have at least a 4-figure bill for promoting it, and sometimes a 5-figure bill, depending on the level of magazine advertising and that sort of thing. So it's not quite the easy win it appears, but there is a margin there. If you think that your car is worth £100,000 all day long, and you can get £100,000 all day long for it, there's no point in using an auction house.
Right.
If you actually think, okay, well, H&H have been going 30 odd years. They've got now well over 75,000 clients worldwide. I think they've got a bigger reach.
Yeah.
Then it's worth engaging. So, for me, the reasons for using Classic Car Auction are either ease and convenience, or, you believe that as an auction house, they've got a bigger marketing reach.
Yeah.
So, that's that. Because there are plenty of very, very good cars that are, sold privately through clubs and all that sort of thing. And it is a growth area. I mean, when I first started in classic car auctions in the 1990s, at the time, the accepted wisdom was that classic car auctions or auction sales accounted for 5% of the classic car market.
All right.
So 95% of cars were traded through dealers,
Yeah.
through clubs, privately, whatever. Now, there's a gentleman called Adelpho Orsi who produces a Balafi yearbook, which is a yearbook of all the prices achieved at auction, and monitors the market. That's what he does. That's his. Well, he's a historian, various other bits and pieces, so I'm selling him short. But anyway, his latest opinion is that auctions have grown to represent something like 25% of the market.
Right.
So that is a big transition in the last 25 plus years. But I mean, again, part of the reasons that auctions have the prominence they do is that they're public.
Yeah.
So, somebody can watch an episode of a TV show.
Well-known television program.
But they can also go on our website, any of the competitors' websites, and see published prices.
Yeah.
So, that's why they tend to carry a bit of weight, because we're not like the land registry. If you're nosy enough, you want to know what your neighbours paid for a house, you could find that information. For classic cars, it's not there. The biggest single source of open market data for classic cars is auction.
Yeah. Now, as we know, H&H are classic specialists. What is currently doing well?
I think it's
He smiled at me then.
well, no, only because the classic car market. I think there's
Just putting out, it tends to be a classic car you'd love to own is not forced to be the classic car that I'd love to own. So there is the difference.
Oh, and it's also something that is really impacted by fashion.
Yeah.
Things come into and go out of fashion. And also, the classic car market is never uniformly always going up or going down on paint. There are always different sections within it. The growth trend over the last 10 years has been undoubtedly what our German friends call young timers.
Yes.
So post-1980s cars, that's been the biggest growth area. So to the point where you've had some really quite outlandish results.
Yeah.
So there was a C124 Mercedes-Benz Coupe that had been completely reworked by AMG as one of their Hammer series.
Yeah.
I think that sold last year for $761,000. Now, that's the kind of price that if you told somebody it was going to make that 5 years ago, they'd have referred you to a psychiatric ward.
Yeah.
So there is that upswell, and people do often say that, you get your 30-year rule, that people, 30 years down the line have got the money to buy something that they lusted after in their youth. But there are other factors, so event eligibility. I'm sure you're aware that, a veteran car that is eligible for the London to Brighton run, so was manufactured before January the 1st, 1905, is considerably more valuable than one that was manufactured like for like on January the 2nd, 1905 and isn't eligible for the event. It is those little nuances. And it's also great to see different companies exploring different aspects of the market.
Yeah.
So without wanting to, there's a well-known insurance company that operates on both sides of the Atlantic that has the Festival of the Unexceptional.
Yep.
Which has really started to kick forward and celebrate a lot of repmobiles, porridge, but they
The thing is, I've never actually been to it because it coincides with something else I do every year.
Yeah.
But you suddenly realise that Triumph Claims, Vauxhall Novas, and these are the basic ones, basic Chevettes, that you used to see all over. It's until you see one, you suddenly think, I haven't seen one of them in years. Because they all returned to Mother Earth and scrap yards, and they were bought new, and third hand they were given to the kids, and when he got written off, nobody was interested in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean very, very much so. I mean it is something that those cars. I mean that is a function of values increasing.
Yeah.
It is supply and demand. You know, if the supply absolutely drops off because most of them being consigned to the knackers yard, then and they still have an incredibly strong nostalgic pull.
Yeah.
And they offer, what was, as you say, kind of dynamically fairly unexceptional in the 70s or 80s. Now, if you put somebody who's just passed their test in, is a kind of wonderful contraption with no power steering and, just all sorts of different, they feel a lot more alive. The cars were much lighter then, and they tend to feel more responsive than the sort of deadened econo boxes we tend to run around into.
Well, the ironic thing is, somebody said to me a few weeks ago, which was the best Ford Fiesta ever made? I said the Mark 1. I said, now I'll narrow it down more. I said the 998cc Pop, the Popular. I said its power to weight was perfect. I said it handled a treat. I said it had nothing inside to distract you. I said a radio was an extra. I said, but the handling and performance was sensational. I said, but you find me a Mark 1 Fiesta Pop now, you'll never find one. I said, if you do, I said, it'll be rotting up a corner of a field someplace.
We did sell one a couple of years ago, I think for about £13,000. But only because it was one of those very strange cars. As soon as it was launched, somebody wanted to manufacture an ingenious contrivance to get a wheelchair in there.
Oh, right.
And it was done as a demo, never covered any miles, and then went to the Science Museum in London.
Yeah.
And then somebody bought it out of the Science Museum, found that they'd kept all the original seats, unbolted the wheelchair apparatus, put the original trim back in, and was basically presenting a time warp capsule Fiesta Pop. And there were plenty of people out there who were just like, I'll never see that again.
Yeah.
And hence it did so well. But that's the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah. I mean, what are some of the most exceptional, if you can tell me, some of the most unusual cars that you've optioned? And how did you come across them? Did they come to you with them, or did you suddenly find, somebody wants to sell that? Because it's good for H&H's profile to be seen selling this car or optioning this car.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixture. As I say, we're very, very fortunate that we get a lot of business through word of mouth recommendation.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of long-standing clients. For me, the most spectacular car that I've had the pleasure of helping to sell was a 1960 Ferrari 250 GT short wheelbase that the late Richard Colton instructed his executors to contact a number of auction houses. We were one of them, and we tendered for the business and thankfully won it. But I remember having sold cars for Richard Colton while he was still alive.
Yeah.
And certainly with the two big Ferraris had a 250 short wheelbase and 275 GTB 4 cam, he had been told by my boss, the company founder, Simon Hope, who I think you used to race with.
Yes, I know, Simon. I've seen him for years. He was, shall we say, if memory serves, he's quite a very tall, gruff and to-the-point individual, is our Simon.
Yeah, no, he's definitely got a great
guy, but yeah. You know where you stand with that.
Oh, as he says, you could call a spade, no messing. But he had said to Richard Colton, I'll send Damian along, he knows a little bit about cars.
Yeah.
Now, Richard just didn't suffer fools gladly. So
he went with trepidation.
You just always try and get on with people because what you're trying to do with the seller is work in partnership with them.
Yeah.
Anyway, he pulled the back of a dust cover off what happened to be the 275 Ferrari and said, which derivative of 275 is it? And thankfully I'd done some mugging up and realised that because it had external boot hinges, it was a 4-cam.
Right.
So I told them that, and that passed the test, and the ice thawed and all. But the main reason for that particular car being so memorable to me was not the value. I mean, yes, don't get me wrong, we don't sell £7.6 million cars every day. Wish we did. But actually I don't, because...
I suppose there's a lot of stress goes with something like that.
There's a lot of stress with it, but also part of the joy of the job is interacting with all types of people and all types of car. And we don't specialise, which, has been a positive and a negative for us. So we have sold everything from 1890s London Brighton runners through to 1990s F1 cars. But the thing about that Richard Colton Ferrari, for me, was he'd had it since 1976.
Yeah.
We sold it in 2015. And he had used it as a car.
Yeah.
Not as a blue chip investment. He'd used it as a car. So that is probably the only time, as I said, I've been doing this getting on for 30 odd years now, the only time I will have the honour of selling a car like that, where the owner has treated it as a car to the point where he'd blown the nose in with a Halfords rattle can.
Proper.
Yeah. It got some stone chips.
Yeah.
It was an old car. He tends to drive it, for a lot of speaking to his friends and things like, he tend to, drive his cars like he'd stolen them.
Yeah.
He did a lot of eventing, a lot of tours and things like that, and he believed the cars were for driving.
Yeah.
And he'd had that Ferrari for decades, and he just thought, fine, I'll blow in the stone chips.
I mean, as you know, 401 Air, I've done the Tour Autos, Classic Le Mans. I've done a bit of the Mia Migli and everything else. And the guys who competed, yes, they have to have an eligible car. But when they're out there, they race them.
Oh, yeah.
They don't play about with them.
No.
Which would horrify most people at times, actually. When you discover, it's like the vintage Bentleys, the proper ones. They're worth millions. Okay, the prices, the values are dropping a little bit. But these guys go out and race the things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a very, very broad church in terms of the classic car community. We've got clients who the whole enjoyment is restoring a car.
Yeah.
They're not actually that bothered about driving when it's finished. It's and more often than not, they're losing money hand over fist.
Yeah.
But they've got the satisfaction of bringing a car back to life and going through that journey.
Yeah.
And frankly, if they weren't doing that, I wouldn't have a job. So, quite grateful to that. We've got other clients who just drive the cars. That's what they're for.
Yeah.
We get other clients who will turn around and say, look, compared to a modern car, this is dynamically awful.
Yeah.
It's just to look at. This is what I have my cars to look at. Friends come over for dinner, or the grandkids that come over. I open the garage doors.
So they all stand to look at it.
And that's it. So it's all, horses for courses, all sorts of different people, and all sorts of different cars prepped accordingly. So,
and I conclude, if you've got a car coming in, you will have clients that you will know to contact and say, if you're interested, we have this coming in.
Yeah, we always try and we always try and market the cars to as wide an audience as possible.
Yeah.
But you never ever want to bump into a long-term client at an event who said, I wish I'd known you'd had one of those coming up and been looking one for years, because you're thinking, well, that was a potential bidder.
Yep.
So you know. So yes, if anything rings a vague bell that you think, I'm sure somebody was looking for one of those, you go through the notes, and we've got a fantastic client database system and a wants list, so we keep tabs. If somebody rings up, and we have had it in the past, and says, I'm after this, I know it's willfully obscure, but can you sort that? Then if we ever get one, we notify.
Yeah. Because, you look at some of them, it's like we talk about cars that are looked at. It's like you get the ones with this ultra-rare one-off bodywork by by company coach builders like Satuchik. That has got to have a very, not being funny, a very narrow client base for somebody to want that. Because invariably, apart from taking it to the big concourse events, it'll never do anything. It'll be trailered or transported all over. But you will have customers who will say, if you get something with this body working and coach working, let me know.
You do get people, just as you get people who focus on a particular manufacturer, so you get people who focus on a particular coach builder.
Yeah.
We've had it in the past where people have absolutely loved the work of Gurney Nutty and their chief stylist in the 30s, A.F. McNeil, who produced some really glorious designs.
Yeah.
And again, occasionally you'll just get somebody who falls in love with it, but especially some of the French coach builders, as you say, like Fagoni and Falaschi, where, or as they used to be colloquially known in the 50s, Phony and Flashy. But anyway, Fagoni and Falaschi with these incredibly dramatic-looking cars, where people look at it and just think, do you know what, that they treat it more like a piece of sculpture than a car.
I must confess, I've seen some of these cars, and you think, well, I believe a car should be driven, but not even I will get behind the wheel of that and take it out, because you'd just be terrified of something happening to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I mean,
Because if it gets bumped, you ain't going to nip down the corner garage and get it repaired. This is serious undertaking as to do anything to.
Yeah, but again, you get different mentality.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I remember somebody once doing an interview with Sir Anthony Bamford.
Yeah.
About why he was happy for his 250 GTOs to be raced. And him saying, well, the maximum amount of damage, you know, at the time is several £100,000.
Yeah.
The car's worth, well, I mean, they're worth a fortune, but let's say you'd struggle to get one for less than $40 million, and one that would have but he would say, as a proportion of the value, it's tiny.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'd much rather it was driven as intended and raced as intended, you know, and if it suffers a knock, it suffers a knock.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, what car have you had through that you'd agreed whatever value it was, and it seriously exceeded? Because it's like the old saying, you only need 2 people on the phone or in the room who want that car. And if money's no object to them, it'll go galactic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do you get this regularly, or is the one that sticks out? Without giving too many H&H secrets away, did you stand there in the room and think, you're joking?
I mean, I think it's the last one that absolutely took me by surprise was bits of a car. You couldn't have called it an entire car.
Yeah.
But it was an ACA's 2.6.
Yeah.
That had, I think it was 2 owners. It's either 2 or 3 owners from new, and the vendor's father had stripped the car for restoration.
Yeah.
Taken all the body panels off, all the interior paneling off, engine out, gearbox out, rear axles out, dashboard out, seats out.
So basically a boxes of these.
Box of bits. The chassis had gone missing.
Yeah.
So you had the car, the wheels, everything, but no chassis. Now they're tubular, so the ladder frame chassis under an Ace, and they weren't rust protected, and a lot of people would have replaced it anyway for safety reasons after this length of time. But that was a very nice box of bits that needed completely restoring.
Yeah.
But you had unbroken ownership, so continuous history, and it was a long-term friend stroke client in Suffolk who rang me up and said, because he was friends with the vendor's late father, he's now thinking of selling. What do you think it's worth? I said, I've got no idea. I said, you know, because some people will just say that's, you know, a pile of bits, what's the point? And other people will look at it and go, no, I can see a car then. Anyway, that we had a mixture of bids on the car, and the differentiation between how some people valued it and how other people valued it was 100 times. So somebody had left a commission bid on it at £2,000. It actually made over £200,000. So, you know, and the gentleman who bought it flew his engineer in from the States.
Yeah.
Both the engineer and the buyer were beyond polite and courteous, and that car is being resurrected.
There's respeeding.
Oh, yeah. So it does happen.
How does somebody get hold of H&H auctions if they've got a car they want to sell, or there's something knocking about that they think they'd like to buy off you?
Telephone, you know, we still use them. So that's the landline, 01925 210 035. Email, you know, we're at info@h&h.co.uk. We also, because technology means we must, you can contact us by WhatsApp, you can message us on Facebook, Instagram, probably other platforms that are failure.
That haven't been invented yet. Damian Jones, Senior Motor Car Specialist at H&H Auctions, here in sunny Warrington. Thank you very much indeed for joining me on the Backseat Driver.
My pleasure.
Rarely beaten on price, never beaten on service. Whether it's cars, bikes, or commercials, Hoddy Tyres are the best in the business. And when it comes to tyre expertise and advice to supplying the correct tyres for your vehicle's specific requirements, nobody comes close to David Lakin and the Hoddy Tyres team. So give them a call on 01200 613 192 or visit the website at hoddytyres.co.uk.